give you about 2 minutes until I get to. Okay, we're live now, so we'll go ahead and start now. I just, no, you go ahead and start. I'm gonna double check my phone.
Yep.
Okay, folks, I think we're ready to go.
Yep. I was there.
I just want to say welcome to everybody, and you know we're here tonight to get to know the candidates running for 2 offices in the Livingston municipal election. So be prepared, because as nice as it is outside now, so I will get pretty windy a little later on in here. First, I'd like to remind everyone of the format of this forum. To begin, each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce himself or herself. And candidates, you can use this time to tell us about your background, your policies, and why we should vote for you. Next, questions from the audience will be addressed. There are several runners around the room. In the back, they're holding the index cards. If you need an index card, just wave at one of them. If you have an index card filled out with your questions, they will come and pick them up for you. The questions are then screened to avoid duplication and at times to combine similar questions on the same subject. Questions meant to intimidate or attack individuals will be eliminated. Also remember that your questions can be addressed to just one candidate or to all the candidates for an office. And the candidates will then have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. Any rebuttal answers will be limited to 30 seconds, 1 rebuttal per subject per person. And audience, if you feel a subject needs to be clarified, please feel free to submit a follow-up question. Candidates, there's a timer in the front row who will track you. As you near the end of your allotted time, she will hold up a 15-second warning card, then a stop card when your time is up. And I think we're going to all hear the buzzer go off anyways. And audience, we ask you to please hold your applause until the end of the forum. Everyone is invited to join us afterwards for some refreshments, cookies, and lemonade, and maybe have an opportunity to visit with the candidates after the forum. We will start with the city judge candidates. There's 1 position for the city judge and 3 candidates. They are Kara Bailey, who is not able to be with us tonight. Did Kara send a statement? Apparently she's still tonight. Holly LaValle Hoppy and Carrie Pintar. Did I say that? Yeah. Okay. By the way, tonight we'll be seeing the candidates alphabetically by last name. So Holly, why don't you start with your 1-minute introduction?
Okay. I'm Holly LaValle Hoppy, resident here in Livingston for a couple of years. Have 3 grown sons. I'm married. I was a dental assistant for my father for many years until he retired. And this opportunity came up for me to apply for this job. And it sounded very interesting. It sounded like a challenge, and I do like a challenge. I inherited that from my dad. And I think that I could implement some good policy changes for communication with the other departments, as I heard that things are kind of a little bit broken around here. And that's what the challenge is for me, and I would really like to pursue that with this job.
Carrie?
My name is Carrie Pintar. I was born in, well, I was conceived in Livingston, born in Dillon. My family's been in Livingston for all their lives. I've been out of the state for, you know, I've been back in Montana, I think, for 11 or 12 years. I have 4 amazing children. They are 31, 24, and I have twins that are going to be 16 on the 26th. And they go to Park High School. I graduated from Fargo North High School. I got a double degree in criminal justice and sociology from Moorhead State University. I have amazing taxi in town, and it's been rolling on the streets for 9 years, and my time is up. Oh, there it is. There it is.
Okay. So now we have a couple questions for the city judge candidates. Judges, please describe your ideas regarding alternative courts to deal with our most vulnerable populations. I'll take a volunteer who wants to go first.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know what the alternative courts are. We haven't been told anything about any of that stuff, so I really can't answer that question about alternative courts.
One thing that comes to mind is mediation or something like that. So, okay. Carrie, do you have any ideas?
I think that it's good to look at alternative courts, that it frees up the justice system a little bit, and mediation is always a better result than having to take things into the court system. Frees up everybody's time, and it's usually less money to do that.
This is another one to the city judge candidates. The most recent audit of the city's finances disclosed a material weakness in its financial reporting with regard to court revenues and receivables. The audit states, quote, "The court is not providing timely reporting to the city finance department," unquote. This was the only material weakness identified in that audit. Presumably, this has been going on for some time. Are you aware of this, and do you have a plan to correct it? Let's start with you, Carrie.
I've heard a little bit about it. I haven't looked into it a lot. I think that accounting is an important part of any business, and that you have to get on top of the collections and, send people bills again, try to get the revenue flowing, because that's what keeps the judgeship going. So that's what will pay our bills. So I think it's important to get on the collections and get a hold of people and let them know that they need to come in and see us and either start doing some community service or something to get their bill paid off in payments.
Yeah, I did kind of investigate this a little bit, which is public knowledge. Anybody could go find that information out. Currently, last week, I printed it off, and it was over $500,000 of contempt of court fines that were listed. I know I have a friend that has a son that had an accident in summer, and he was fined, and his name was on there, and she said she had paid the fine, and it showed that he still owed the fine. And this was from August. So, to me, it's not a true report. And I did finance for a big corporation in Billings for 10 years. I was assistant office manager there, and we had to do financial statements monthly. I've always been accountable for daily stuff and accounts receivables and account payables for all that stuff in every job that I've had. And that's a very important thing, and I think it should be implemented. And I also think that with these fines, when I see people that can afford cigarettes and a cell phone and they can't pay their fines, I think there's something wrong with that. And you drive around the streets of the town and look and see what type of community service could be done if they can't pay their fines, if they're trying to feed the 5 kids or whatever they have, and they can't pay their fines, then there's a lot of community service that could be done around this. And I would like to, if I got in, implement more communication for that to be done. Plus, if there needs mental health positions that need to be taken, these people need to have mental health treatment, then
Boy, we listen to that timer, don't we? Okay, another question. What characteristics do you have that qualify you to be a judge? Holly?
I have empathy, so I can understand. I've seen people coming into my dad's office that can't afford to have their work done. And a lot of times my dad did it for free or really cut it in half, and so there's times when you have to incorporate that, but you have to follow the law with this position. And I think that's pretty much a standard for it. And that's what I would implement, following the law to be the basics, but you have to have empathy, you have to have a heart with this position.
Sorry to interrupt, but I can't hear you very well.
Okay, Margot. We'll do it.
Carrie, again, what characteristics do you have that qualifies you to be a judge?
I'm too, I'm compassionate, I'm empathetic, I am, I'm a believer in truth and justice. I believe in civil rights, I believe in I believe in the pursuit of happiness, and I really want the best for everybody. And so if I were to get elected, I would really hope that I can work with the community members and the community to make Livingston beautiful. Well, Livingston is beautiful, but to try to get the criminal justice system and the court system on a page that can work with the community members, and so that we don't have the huge deficit of money that's still owing, and try to get more volunteers or people to do community service with different companies in the community that need help, and that they could work within, collaboration is a really important thing. So.
Next question. What are the important duties of the judge, and why do you want to be in this position? Let's switch it up. Carrie, you can start.
I've been trying to figure that out, actually. The city judge, it came with just like 2 sheets of paper, and every time I went online to see what a city judge in Montana does, all I get is every single judge throughout the state of Montana with no description. So I honestly don't know what the city judge does. I know that I had to go against Carl one time for a dog barking. I won. But I know that you need to incorporate the law, you need to follow the law, and you need to show up and listen to people and tell them their rights, and read them what they're faced with and what the possible fines or charges could be. I really wish I could tell you more because it's all a mystery, but I'm excited for it, and I think it would be a great adventure. So I honestly don't know what else to say. Thank you.
I feel pretty much the same. She probably nipped in the bud there. We're not given a very good description, even like hours, except that you have to be here. I have several people come up to me, well, are you going to be there because the current one isn't there all the time? And I don't know that that's going on, but in a small town, I'm getting a lot of feedback and stuff, and that's why it's piqued my interest so much to even do this, because I think that there's some discord that could be changed, and more communication with the police department, the mental health department, and other departments that actually deal with the city court. I think I can implement those things with some of my skills. And like I said, I'm up for a challenge. It says, it doesn't say anything about our hours, but I would figure you would have to be there 8 to 5 to get the job done. And I plan on doing that.
What are some of the problems that city judges experience, and how would you resolve them? 2-part question. What are some of the problems that a city judge would experience, and how would you resolve them? Holly?
That is a question that I can't even answer that because I've never been a city judge. I've never been in the city court. I can't answer that question because I have never experienced that. I've never been to court. I've never been to court.
Well, I think that obviously it sounds like the accounting is an issue for the city court on accountability for people paying their fines. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I think that it sounds like it would be really important to figure out who's actually paid their fines and get the list online correct. And so, because it is a huge list of warrants, city warrants online of people. And I'm not sure why, if the jails are full, why people are not being pulled in. I don't know what the problem is with that, why that page hasn't diminished. But like Holly's saying, it sounds like people have been paying fines and it's not been up to date. So one thing would really be to get the accountability of the accounting department back to its state. Other problems, I guess like I said, I don't even know what the job description really is, but so that's all I'm aware of.
So neither of you have much experience with it, with this city judge duties. But tell us about your willingness to learn new things and ask for help when necessary.
Oh, I love learning. Life is always, you know, my kids always, I drive a taxi, my kids always wanted to get me a GPS. And I love being lost because, it's always rewarding to find where you're going. And I mean, I think that this would be a great challenge. It would be, I think that this would be a great opportunity, and I'm excited if I get the position. I would be honored to serve the community of Livingston.
I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm not too old to learn yet. I can still learn some stuff. I haven't crossed that line yet. And in every job I've been in, I've always tried to learn more things and move up the ladder. And I'm a team player. I like communication open. I don't like to not be able to work with other departments for any reason. I think the flow needs to go in order for things to work right.
What is your previous personal experience with the law? Holly? I mean, this covers a lot, not just appearing before a judge, but hiring an attorney, say, or a number of things.
I haven't,
Or taking college classes or anything like that.
I haven't never had to hire an attorney for anything like that. I have a couple of people that I know that are in the department, in the sheriff's department and the police department, but otherwise I've never had anything. I haven't had anything happen yet.
Carrie?
Well, I went to college and one of my majors was criminal justice. It wasn't the law, it wasn't lawyer or law aspect. It was, a broader criminal justice degree. Law has always interested me. I've had four kids though, and I've been a single parent again for quite a while. So law school, I got admitted, but I just never pursued it just because it didn't fit into but my kids are older now and they're going, they're pretty independent. And so I have time now, and law's always intrigued me. I'm very interested in people's civil rights and just I'm really interested in the law being upheld and the law being honest and just. And I would be honest with people. I would serve to the best of my ability. And I've had I'm currently in a lawsuit and I'm pro se with the state of Montana. The taxi has had a deregulation by the state. And so I'm in a lawsuit right now and I have 15 seconds. But anyway, the law intrigues me. I love learning, and I would fill the shoes to the best of my ability.
Next question. How do you feel about community service versus fines? Okay.
I feel that community service is probably much more effective, especially for people who struggle with money. Fines end up clogging the courts. Like I said, there's a huge list of warrants and people that would be pulled into jail at least till they got to see the judge, probably to get released and a payment plan set up. I totally think community service is a wonderful thing, because in that way the fine is getting fulfilled and it's helping the community and it's helping that person be able to get rid of their debt to the community, and it's actually being served. They're helping and they're doing their part.
Yeah, I truly believe that the community service is a very fine thing to have. I think that there's plenty of businesses and places downtown that could use the help. I don't know what the procedure is for this. I've had, when I walked around last week talking with businesses, I had some of them tell me that they come in and stuff and then half the time they never show up. I would want to improve things. accountability for the people that go to these places and are expected to do this work, and make sure they're accountable, and I need to know the procedure for who takes care of that. That's something that I'm not privileged to find out at this time, but I would really think that community service is a great deal needed in this community. There, you walk around, even you see some of the streets and stuff and the roadways and how bad they are. Get them out there cleaning them up. You know, you look at the town, there's a lot of stuff that can be cleaned up. So yeah, I believe community service is a very good thing to have.
Now, what do you think? What do you think is the biggest challenge that faces the court? And what do you propose to address that challenge? Do you think anything is a big challenge that's facing the court this time? Do you want to start, Carrie?
Well, I think that there's a problem with drugs and alcohol in this town. And I think that that's something that faces the court and the community both together. I think that that's something that could be improved, and, you know, it also help the people's children or whatever. So I think that's a problem. I think that there's more of a problem with homelessness for a lot of different people, and housing is a problem. And there's a lot of stresses right now, and survival is a tough thing. And so, you know, I think that's why I think community service is an important thing to implement, because you have to work with people, because if people don't have money to pay a fine, you know that it's going to be a warrant coming out in the long run. So I think that it's just important to work with whoever is in front of you and do the best that you can do to reprimand them, but also to make it that they can make the payment, or the, you know, do their community service so that they're fine.
Did you read the question for me?
What do you think is the biggest challenge that faces the court? And what do you propose to do to address the change?
Yeah, I feel that the community service would be one thing, because of the drug addiction and the stuff that's going on in this town at this time. The mental health department, I think that more of these people that are getting all these fines, I see on the docket for the contempt of court, more of these people, there's just repeated. And if you're idiots, I couldn't even look at over $10,000 fines for some of the people. How are they ever going to do that? I couldn't even pay that at this time. And I think that implementing some treatment for some of these people, we need to have a treatment, probably court treatment, you know, facility that we could send them to, or work with the treatment department and mental health, and get some of these people the help that they need, because they're obviously repeat offenders and they're not able to pay their fines, and they're not doing the community service for some reason. So
I know we have time for at least one more question. Speaking of time, how much time do you expect to commit to this job? Is this a full-time job as far as you're concerned? And can you have another job on the side as well?
for me, I mean, to me, it's an 8-to-5 job, Monday through Friday. It doesn't say anything in that as far as the job description, but you need to get the work done. It seems like there's quite a bit of work to be done there. And I would be there 8 to 5. That would be, unless I had to go to the doctor.
Okay, we have this recorded now.
That's fine. That's fine. Unless I have to go to the doctor.
Carrie.
Yeah, I see it as a full-time position. I'm not sure what the hours are. I mean, I see on her page that, you know, she has course twice a week. But, you know, I'm sure. But, you know, I'd also be doing some work outside of the office because, like I said, I would really try to implement some community service and meet with people at the treatment centers, at the Evergreen Nursing, or at Livingston Health and Rehab, out at the hospital, because there's always people that can move people around. You know, people need help, and sometimes it's just good community service, even for people to go visit with elders, or, you know, and that sometimes makes them feel better inside too, making somebody else happy. So.
I think we have time for one more question. We got a little late start. The city court uses the online state Supreme Court system. How proficient are you with computers? Are you comfortable learning more?
I am. Yeah, I've been using that in all my jobs, past 25, 30 years.
Carrie?
Yeah. I'm comfortable.
Okay. And the question was, how proficient are you with computers?
Well, they're not my favorite. I prefer people-to-people contact, but I'm getting much better with them. You know, I've learned to. Yeah, I'd say I'm probably 55%. I could probably learn more.
I can learn more. Everybody can learn more.
Well, it appears our allotted time for the city judge is up. We'll take a short break to rearrange candidates table, resume in a few minutes. So thank you.
But you may if you're even city commissioner. Of course not.
Well, not opportunity to check it out. I assume that so go ahead and just blow it out, right? That's right. Say it. Say it. I was just going to do that. Okay, there's 3 more. All right.
I hear. One of my friends did us. I just I'm not. How about Zoe and Terrell? So we all live
Anybody need Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Get on it right away.
it's over in WA. That's all right.
I do too.
Check out my niece, who had to go back to South Africa for her.
That's what started off.
She just.
Everybody's on those.
Yeah, I don't know. They're, let's see, families came first, last name, who knows? Okay, if everybody's ready and do it, just find yourself a seat. So let's get on with the city commissioner candidates. There are 3 open positions for city commissioner and 6 candidates. They are Mary Beebe, Patricia Graybo, Fred Hall, Darrell Hoagland, Warren Mabey, and Quentin Schwartz. Mary, why don't you start us off with your 1-minute introduction, please?
I'm Mary Beebe, and I was not born in Livingston. I was born in Missoula, so it makes me almost close enough, but on the wrong side of the Continental Divide, I think. But then moved to Boulder, Colorado when I was 10 years old. And
Mary, could you go back closer to the?
sure, sorry about that. So at any rate, I moved to Livingston in 1995. Let's just cut the history short. In 1995, partly because my sister and brother-in-law lived here and my niece, and I was looking for a place to call home. I was pretty traumatized after my mother died, and I bounced around quite a bit, and then finally it was home here. And I went to the Beartooth Bakery, and I hung out and read books and met a lot of people from Livingston, and here I am.
The buzzer went off. Patricia.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank the AAUW for their hard work in doing these things. Sorry there were some competitive events tonight. I'd like to see more information given to people about the issues facing Livingston and the candidates. My background is bachelor's degree, government economics, married to a White House news correspondent, involved in national economics, lobbied on Capitol Hill, raised 3 sons, got a master's in administration. But that's kind of not where I really got started with cities. I started with cities when I was 22, advocating for Falls Church, Virginia, and have spent my life involved in cities, loving their structure, loving the way they're put together, and participating in trying to help make the community better. I arrived in Livingston 19 years ago, got the Grable building back that my grandmother had. So I'm running out of love for this amazing community.
Thanks, Patricia. Fred?
Good evening. No time for chit chat. I arrived in Livingston in '73, fell into the Livingston vortex, never been able to get out. I worked professionally in the surveying trade ever since. I've been on the commission twice, in the early '90s and into the 2000s. Both terms were tumultuous. The last one was painfully frustrating. And after that second term, I was just never willing to get back into politics. I just couldn't work with many of the past city managers. Frankly, they were just too ineffective. Before I decided to jump into this race, I spent a good deal of time with our new city manager, and frankly, he's a man we can all work with. He's got a lot to offer the community, and I want to be there to help him out. The 21st century is roaring out. It's like a freight train, and we need to be proactive and ready for it. We need to get some new thinking and some new programs placed here in town, or we're going to get bulldozed. And I'm here to do what I can to keep Livingston. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Darrell Hoagland. I am a wife, a mother, 10-year-old twins, an educator and an assistant principal, a 14-year Livingston resident, active community member, current commissioner, and strive to continue the work that I think, or the hard work of our community, and move forward with the work we have done as a commission and as a city, and to hopefully in an ethical and open way, which we should do, improve our infrastructure, our public safety. I made a little list, sorry, our recreation, planning, which I'm a big part of as far as city commitments, and parks and trails, and our community partnerships. So I strive to continue that work. And
Warren?
Real quick resume. I moved here 10 years ago from Goshen, New York, which is about 60 miles north of New York City. It was much like Livingston is now and has been. New York City discovered it sometime in the 80s, I believe, and it is now a bedroom community for metropolitan New York. A house I bought in the early 80s for $35,000 now would probably sell for about $250,000. So I'm familiar with the problem. As far as experience, I'm a graduate of Hofstra University. 1 year of film production school at Boston University when I was commissioned, and went on active duty with the Army. I ran the AmeriCal Division's photographic section for 1 year, and after that ran a printing company for 36 years. Started at $45,000 and ended someplace around $965,000.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. I've been here for a quarter of a century. Best move and decision my wife of 32 years made for us and our family. These are challenging times for our city. We have a lot going on. We have problems with drugs and housing, minimum wage earners and stuff like that. A lot of different things that we've been trying to work for. Construction on the wastewater treatment has begun. Bids are going out soon for the downtown construction on the streets and the infrastructure down there, so we can start early spring of 2018. Under overpass is a huge priority for the city, and under the vision and leadership of our new city manager, Michael Curtis, I see that happening rather sooner than later. Thank you.
Okay, we'll get on with our questions. And we're going to jump right into it with this first one. We were just discussing the city judge. If elected, will you create a job description for the city judge? And how would you go about doing it? Let's start this end, Mary, and cycle back around, and we'll take.
I did not know that that was part of the commission's role to write a job description for the city judge, but if it is, I think that as a part of a team, we could do that. That's a surprising question to me, just because I never entertained that idea as part of the role.
I don't make them up, I just ask them.
I know. Oh, no, I was just caught a little off guard there.
I have real concerns about the city commission writing a job description for a city judge. I truly believe in separation of powers. That's one of the strengths of this country. We have the judicial system, we have the legislative system, and we have the administrative system. And one of the problems we've had with the last city manager and administration was that there was some infringement upon the powers of the judge, and that to me is inappropriate for representative democracy. Right?
Well, I've got to say that is a rather surprising question. Frankly, I doubt if the city commission has the authority to write a job description. I don't really know. I'm sure there's some sort of standards already in place. Somebody's already thought of this, and I just don't know what other comment to make.
I agree with everyone else in that it's not our role as commissioners to oversee the day-by-day process of the judgeship, and that role goes to the state and to the judicial state or system within the state. It's not ours.
Well, one of my main beliefs is let's make good decisions. And the first decision there is to go to somebody who knows, to the expert. To me, that would be to go right to the city attorney and take it from there.
I echo all those sentiments, exactly. City commission, in my experience on that, we're responsible for hiring the city manager, and that's it.
No other personnel.
Not that I'm aware of.
This next question has to do with taxes. Do you think offering tax incentives to attract new businesses to Livingston should be restricted to businesses that offer living wages? Patricia, can you start with this?
Sure. I don't, to my knowledge, and I've attended just about every city, I've probably attended 50% plus of every city commission meeting for the last 18 years and been a city commissioner. I've never heard of a tax incentive to businesses that is been put forward by the city of Livingston. I love it. I am a big fan of public-private partnerships. In fact, I initiated and will continue to work with a partnership with MRL on our shops to bring industry into our shops. I'd love to have tax incentives for things like that. I don't know if you know of Future West, but it's a wonderful organization that is really interested in bringing jobs back to the shops. And of course, so tax incentives, I've never heard of it happening in Livingston. Great idea.
Right, and the question does ask, should tax incentives be restricted to businesses that offer living wages?
No.
Right?
My turn?
Yeah.
Well, theoretically, tax incentives are a good idea, and they can be used in an intelligent way. And certainly, of course, you're going to incentivize companies that are going to pay people a living wage. And Livingston, that's a big thing that I think is very important, is trying to create some sort of economy for the city. We need a self-supporting economy for the city. If tax incentives are a part of it, good. But the experience I can tell you is that the city has been burned a number of times on giving tax incentives and then the companies reneging on their part of the bargain. So if you're going to have tax incentives in place, you're going to have to drive a hard bargain and write the contract where they can't get out of it without paying up.
Partnerships are, I think, what's vital for our community and how we work together through, if it's with the county, with the businesses, with the recreation aspect of our community. And I like the idea as a possibility, but I think I'd have to do a lot more research and know that the follow through would have to be watched carefully so that we are not giving tax incentives and then having it backfire. There's impact fees, which I could see as a possibility over tax incentives, to be honest.
This is a case-by-case situation. Tax incentives are kind of notorious for, like Fred said, they get a company will get an incentive for 10 years, and then when it ends, they move. So you wind up with a bunch of empty buildings. So that has to be very, very carefully looked at again on a case-by-case basis, and also on the history of the company. As far as being able to stipulate a minimum wage or any of the wages, I don't know. And again, this is something for an expert. I don't know how much of that you can do legally. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Warren. I would definitely look at it on a case-by-case basis. What's really lacking in this town is more and more jobs that do pay a living wage. We're a tourist town, and right now we've a lot of minimum wage and service worker jobs with no place for them to live that's affordable and quality affordable housing as well. So I look at it as a case by case.
The next question has to do with utility rates. Is there a good reason to raise utility rates? Fred?
Me? I was hoping we wouldn't touch this subject, but okay. The reason my first term on the commission was very tumultuous revolved around the construction of the utility shop out there, and that was supposed to solve all our problems for the next 20 years, even when we got the population of 20,000, which is where we were supposed to be right now. And I don't think we're making use of the facilities we have. I'm questioning, as far as taxes go, why would you raise our rates so that the utility shop can pay high dollar rent over here on 2nd Street? I'm just not quite sure why we aren't using our own facilities. So that's just one example of where I'm not sure the taxes and the rates that we're paying are actually that reasonable. That's something I definitely want to review before anybody raises any further rates.
I believe that utility rates in some cases need to be raised, depending on what is needed through infrastructure, through cost of living raises, various aspects of funding or planning ahead for our future. And I know I try very hard to not ever raise rates, or to raise them very small increments, or with very small increments. And I understand the concerns that people have, but I do think there is some validity to small increases when it comes to looking down the road to the future and for our community.
Well, right now, one of the critical things I think has to improve is the tax base, because all of these, the tax base, the costs, there's a $15 or $17 million, I don't know which number is right, for the water treatment plant, and we have the same tax base. So, and nothing is going down in price. So unless the tax base is improved, that's the only thing that can happen. But, not hoping for it or wishing for it, but it's the only option. The infrastructure also in town is going to cost X number of dollars. And that's one of the problems, is the not increasing the tax base. And that's, along with the economic development and the housing that'll make that affordable.
With regard to raising utility rates, we've been playing catch up for a number of years, and we will be playing catch up for the next 50 years. I'm the last one who wants to see more taxes, but they become inevitable to be able to progress. We all want clean water, and we do not want to pollute the Yellowstone River. It seems like lately all we've been doing is, when we do raise the rates, it's basically cost of living increase or something like that. And if we do it needs to be specific in exactly where it's going to go, and the people need to know exactly where it's going.
Mary, I owe you an apology. I didn't get to give you a
Oh,
chance
that's
to ask
okay.
the
I
last question.
probably would have just
We'll
said
give
me
you
too.
we'll give you double time.
Okay, tax incentives, I agree with Ward. It's a case-by-case basis. The integrity of the company This is the most important thing to look at. And tax incentives is one tool, but you don't say yay or nay to that. Okay. About rate increases. I was served on the commission from 2004 to 2010, and we were the commission that did sticker shock raises. And we did them because unless you have rates at a certain level, you cannot get the grants from the state that you need to do these big projects. So we're not talking, I mean, I do think we need to separate the issue of taxes and rates. Rates are they're in a whole different flow of revenues and projects. So if we hadn't raised those rates the way we did, we wouldn't have been able to make the improvements. And I do say that that I really feel like we got there to a much larger degree, and we just, maybe you can get by with small increases now, but these big projects that we need to keep up are important, and they're important to the health of the community. And we still have a long ways to go to catch up from 40 years ago. So that's how I feel about it.
Patricia, is there a good reason to raise utility rates?
That is really a complicated question. By the way, I wanted to invite people. I took the time to write out position papers on 4 different areas, including economic development. So at the end of the meeting, if you'd like to pick up those, you could go pick those up and see what specifics we're talking about. I think I am concerned, and terribly concerned, that our budget went from 11 million to 17 million in a relatively short period of time with no population increase. And the public priorities were not met. Overpass, underpass, finishing the downtown streets. I think I'm concerned about the way the CIP is put together. I think that the public priority should be brought into the CIP process, which has not happened. And I spent 2 hours with an orientation to the computer that works with the CIP process. And if you've been through the CIP process, you know that you've got an 8-hour period in which the entire $10 million CIP is approved. And the public isn't part of that. And I think the whole process should be seriously looked at. We should include public priorities. We should include overpass. We should include all the things that the public dreams of in their town. It's their money. It's the additional $7 million a year. That's their money that is not producing an overpass. So I think we have to look at the whole picture and seriously.
Thanks.
Lonnie, 30
Yeah.
seconds.
Sure.
As far, a little bit of history here. In '95, we put a program in place, a 20-year program to start replacing sewer and water, and also at the same time, we were replacing streets, curbs, and gutters. That was a 20-year program that worked quite well. The last city manager let that program fail. We need to get that program back into place.
Okay, the next question is on policing, and we'll start with Darrell answering this. Are you in favor of citing distracted drivers? For example, holding and talking on cell phones, pets on drivers' laps. Follow-up, distracted. Oh, there's a follow-up question. What about distracted walkers stepping out in front of moving cars?
Perfect question for me. Anything traffic is a good question for me. Because I am very concerned about our community and as far as traffic issues, and I know many cities have implemented, bigger cities implemented no cell phone policies, and it's been effective to the level that it can be. So I'm not against it. I hadn't thought about it as far as our small community. I don't know if it would go over quite yet as something that the community would be okay with. I think it is a great idea in that we already have enough problems with people traveling anything from east to west as a through street. So maybe taking the cell phones out of their hands while they're driving through streets that are not through streets. That would be helpful.
I love the part of the question about pets on driver's maps, about seeing pets driving the car. Warren, do you want me to reread the question? Are you good?
No, I think the distracted walkers will take care of themselves. I'd like to know what has been found in other locations where they have put regulations on using cell phones. As far as pets go, I don't think that's anywhere near the same as a cell phone. I think that wouldn't be required.
Depends how big the dog is. I believe in hands-free all the way. Pets, a baby on your lap when you're driving or anything like that leads to a distraction. That's all I have on that.
I would go to the city attorney and check and see if this is even within our domain. One of the things we have to realize, we're a general government city. We can only do what the state tells us we can do. We are not a charter city. We're one of 2 cities in the state of Montana our size that are not, for reasons that are a long historical and complicated process. But I frankly think that it's probably, I'm guessing, not in our domain to make that particular kind of law outside of state law, but I would go to the city attorney about that. But I kind of think we can't make specific laws about those kinds of issues. I don't know for sure, but I would certainly check before we go down that road.
First of all, one of the concerns I have, and it's important to elect somebody who knows the entire system and how it works. I have been involved in creating some of these laws, and our problem to some degree is enforcement of whatever laws we have created. So if we begin to try to create laws dealing with cell phones and things that may not be as germane to the health and well-being of our citizens, and we do not enforce the laws we have on the books. And that if you attend city commission meetings, and very often I'm the only person there, you will see that enforcement is the biggest issue. So you have to be very careful the laws that you create so that you build into that an enforceable law, something that is of significance to the community and is important to the well-being of its citizens.
Mary may have a good point. I don't know whether the city commission has the authority to put laws like that in place. Obviously, distracted drivers are a danger to the community. If you can create some sort of reasonable standard whereby you can judge whether or not somebody's distracted, and the police have the time in their busy day to try and enforce what I'll call somewhat small-time city rules, okay, it might not be something that the commission can't talk to. And as far as distracted walkers, I'll let Darwin sort them out.
Here's one I think you've all been waiting for. It has to do with an overpass. If you do not support an overpass, underpass to the north side of town, why do you feel that is the correct position? Warren?
If you do not support either
If
one?
you do not support an over or underpass to the north side of town.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would support it. The rationale about it being a safety issue, there was a commission meeting where there have fire and police said there's never been an incident where there was not access to the north side of the tracks, ever. So I think that's, that's a once in a lifetime lightning bolt concern. The real concern is the the traffic pattern. The north side is, well, 86 lots were just approved to add to what's up there now. And when you look at the map, I'm on the planning board recently. When you look at the map of the proposed lots on the north side, it's just phenomenal. So there's going to be a traffic flow that is just going to be impossible to be handled by the current crossings. And the proposed crossing out by Printing for Less, which was in the last 8 years, that's the first time I've heard it, a very novel approach, I think is probably an ideal solution. I don't know which one, over or under, but there. Thank you.
I'm in favor of either an under or overpass, preferably under, depends on, the view shed. We have a very unique community that we live in, and I'd hate to destroy that. As Warren alluded to, there's a lot more development on the north side and will continue to be. Traffic's only going to get worse. Summit, 7th, 9th Street, see a lot of pressure. It's only getting worse, and that's, we need to find an alternative to move the traffic around our neighborhoods. Thank you.
The city taxpayers tax themselves to do the planning for the underpass. The plans are done, the engineering is done. Then, the problem was that the next step was assumed to be something that the federal resources would pick up through earmarks. And if you don't know what earmarks are, it made a big difference when we lost earmarks in terms of the relationship of the federal government to local governments. It used to be the way that our Congress people brought home the bacon. At any rate, that was done away with in 2010. We would, I believe, have constructed, at least started construction on that underpass in the fall of 2011 if we had had that federal funding available. We went for Tiger grants, which were not appropriate, and I think we probably spent too much time on that particular pursuit of funding. We need to find funding for the underpass that is already engineered and designed, that we have paid for. It's sitting there, it's waiting for construction. I don't think that precludes the future of having another crossing, either under or overpass, depending on the location and the geography. I'm not an engineer, but I think we need to finish what we started. That's my view.
Patricia?
A significant part of my background is in urban planning. I know we have to go north in order to be a healthy community. I'm grateful we didn't put in the underpass. Frankly, and there's a brochure out there that describes in detail why an overpass is the only answer for us. We can get an overpass done in the next 3 years. It is called a design build process. It needs to be where Northern Lights comes out, goes south at Sun Road. The land does this. It does this because there's Fleischman Creek has eaten out the land because it's a body of water. Then we have a wetlands, a federal wetlands in which the antelope give birth to their babies. That is also where water has eaten out the land. And in the middle is a high area with and so we need to put that overpass, it's really just a bridge, to the tune of $6.5 to $7 million, right in the best possible place that Weimer planned the entire Star subdivision around. And so we do not need to destroy our watershed. We do not need to destroy our wetlands. We need to preserve them. And we do not need to put an underpass where a stream comes in. It was a bad idea to start with. It's still a bad idea. And we can have it done within 3 years. And I've outlined it in the brochure. At half the cost.
Well, I'm certainly going to go where angels fear to tread. Frankly, I'm not sure whether I want to support this or not. I'll tell you why. There's a number of reasons. One, it's philosophical. I'm not sure that I want to continue to cater to the needs of automobiles and sacrifice things that people in the community need. We have limited resources. If we have limited resources and there's only so much civic energy in the community, maybe we better look to see how we want to spend those resources to see if we can't benefit all the people in the community. I've lived on the north side for 43 years, and I've got months of my life invested in cussing trains that are in the way. But frankly, in terms of the real world, a few months is nothing. The other thing that really bothers me, and people need to think about before they jump off this cliff with this underpass, it's not going to benefit people like me that live on the north side so much. It's going to benefit the developers from Bozeman. You're going to open a back door into this community that's going to allow those people to come in here, buy up these tracts of land, and start proposing to build very large subdivisions out there. I work in the subdivision business. I know what these people are thinking, and I know what they want, and I know what they need. And the underpass is going to open the key to our north side. Is unlimited growth what we want to see here in Livingston? I'm not sure if it is. So before I'm going to support an underpass, I want to be guaranteed that every member of the community that understands the implication and has had a chance to make an input. This is a very important issue to this community, no matter how it goes.
The number one priority that was given, well, number two, behind a balanced budget, it was the underpass for our former city manager. I was just reviewing an evaluation, and what it made me think of is that we've been wanting this for a long time, and I'm still committed to changing or moving towards this, but I'm also committed to finding the best place for it if that has to change. So I want us to continue as a community to move towards it in the sense of all of us. We have to think about how do we want to pay for it. It's not going to be federal. It's not going to be just the north side. It's going to be the community, and I think we have to commit. And that's something that I don't think we've done, is connect that part of it, that unless we pay or vote for a mill levy, or unless we increase impact fees, which will impact the businesses or the developers, or I know that the issue impacts the whole community. As an educator, whole busloads of children are caught, and those children are, all part of our community as well.
You started this more, didn't you? This next question kind of touches on what Fred was talking about. It has to do with Bozeman. People in Livingston work and shop in Bozeman. How will you work with Bozeman, as we have much to gain by cooperating with them? Quentin?
Wow, great. That's a good one. Question that President said again.
How people in Livingston work and shop in Bozeman. How will you work with Bozeman, as we have much to gain by cooperating with them? How will you work with?
I think both communities need to look at affordable housing for both the workers. I think they have a pretty good administration over there that would be receptive to working with us. First 9 years of my life here, I had to commute to Bozeman before I could start my own business over here. So, like it or not, we are somewhat of a better community to Bozeman. It's a unique question, and there's no simple, easy answer there.
Mary?
I just actually think that the idea that we shop and work in Bozeman, it's going the other way too. People can't find housing in Livingston, suitable housing, so they are actually working in Livingston and living in Bozeman. This is very true, say, the hospital people, many of the professionals, because they really cannot find appropriate housing for their families here. And so I think that one of the things that I heard someone use the term is from HRDC is we all are in this ecosystem. And Bozeman is part of it. We're part of it. We're a unique community. Bozeman has its own issues. But Bozeman's been on the front line of this housing issue for a long time, longer than us. And they're taking the brunt of it now. So I think we need to build some alliances, maybe some working partnerships where we come up with solutions that take into consideration the unique qualities of both of our communities and see what we can put together, because the idea that Bozeman is really of a different country that we're at war with, sometimes I feel like that's the feeling, it's just outdated. It's way outdated. We really are in this together, and we need to find a way to work together and to share ideas and perhaps resources.
I ran for city commission for a number of reasons. One is I do not want us to become like Bozeman, and I have no interest in our becoming a suburb of any kind of Bozeman. I know how to develop our economy in such a way that we become a standalone economy, with a healthy standalone economy, and it should have been done for the last 10 years. I was president of the Downtown Building Owner and Business Association, and there's a brochure back there that talks about the 12 different projects that we are working on to make us that standalone community. My grandfather got here in 1885. We have such an amazing history. We have such an amazing uniqueness on this planet. We are 52 miles from Yellowstone. We have 5 million people going up past us every single day on I-90. We are beautifully situated for this to flourish, not to just get along. We are in a position right now, and this is a critical time for us to actually flourish economically. And there is absolutely no reason we're not. And we don't have to grow in terms of population that much in order to do that. We have to grow to accommodate things like the hospital, but we do not have to grow that much in order to have a healthier income for every single person in Livingston, Montana. And that should be our goal.
Well, I gotta say, I've never really thought about working cooperatively with Bozeman. That's a novel thought, and nobody has ever brought that up that I can remember. I wish I thought Bozeman was this magnanimous little place over there that really loved us, but they, frankly, I think they'd like to use us as their means of coming up with cheap housing so they can continue to overinflate their housing. They've already filled up Belgrade, and they dearly love to fill up Livingston. And there's a few things, the hill, the wind, and access that's keeping them over there in Bozeman. You know, if there are common things that we could work with them, fine. But I think that's somewhat pie in the sky, and frankly, I think we have other things that we need to focus on more than trying to accommodate Bozeman.
The only thing that I see us working with Bozeman on is economic development. How do we work together to bring businesses to this region of Montana? What I find more important is us working with the county, or working with Gardner, or working with the smaller communities in our county that impact us and impact us through tourism, recreation, trails, businesses. So I would never put them as one of my priorities of moving towards working towards a destiny together. I see us doing that in a different way because of the way of our community and the way we work.
Well, I'm pretty much all for working with anyone that it's a positive effect on Livingston. Right now, a comparable house in Livingston and Bozeman, there's about $100,000 difference. If you go on Zillow, The new developments on the hill are going to be any place from 220,000 to over 300,000. I can see working, like Darrell said, I can really see working with the county. Bozeman just had a failed policy working with developers where they had to dedicate, I think, 10% of the development to lower income, and it didn't work. If you look, and again, I'm really all for research. If you look at most of the much higher end cities like Aspen or any the real high rent district, they haven't found a solution other than to have the workers 50 miles away, and that's unfortunate. I'm not promoting that. And Gardner put in a man camp that I think they bought from the Bakken, and that was their only solution, and it works, but not ideal. So I don't know what we get from Bozeman positively. I mean.
Okay, the next question, I think we'll start with Mary, has to do with refuse. Do you think the transfer station and recycling bins should be available on Saturdays for the working public?
The recycling bins are available on Saturdays. And I think during the summer hours, the transfer station is too. So yes.
Somebody must have had an
Until
experience with them to send this question. Tricia?
Yes, I obviously, I agree with Mary on this. I want to say one thing though. The Public Works Department sold a lot of its projects on the basis of recycling. It was really important to everybody. Now they are talking about possibly reducing recycling, glass recycling and so forth. That was the selling point for that transfer station. And I was on the city commission when that transfer station was okay. And now they're thinking of reducing recycling. It's a really important thing to this community. And I go back to public priorities. The public is paying the bill. The public is paying $17 million right now. Shouldn't they have some sort of say about what their priorities are? And so I think that we should take a very serious look at what the future of that entire refuge problem.
Brad?
Well, quickly, yes. I mean, I think the recycling center and the transfer station need to be open at least most of Saturday, so the people that only have Saturday and Sunday off can make use of them. I mean, that's kind of common sense. As far as recycling goes, it's a good idea, but it's hard to make it work. I mean, to be quite honest, in the current economic environment, it's very difficult to make it work. We need to try, you know, because continuing to throw more and more refuse in landfills just is not the way to go. It's a tough road to hoe, but we need to try to do what we can as far as recycling goes.
The easy answer is yes. It has been an ongoing discussion issue since I've been on the commission of the timing of the transfer station and the recycle center. I'm a big believer in us offering recycling. I'd like to be ahead of the curve. If you look at areas of the world or our country where it's more populated, recycling is vital because of the population, the lack of landfills. We're a little spoiled because we have a lot of space, and I don't want us to get behind in our thinking so that we end up struggling later for space just to put our garbage. So I'm a big believer in recycling and to rethink the process of it. And it's unfortunate, it's always economic, but I do think just our little help that we can put into it is to open the recycling center up to us getting our recycling in there when we can, as I mean, most of us here are full-time workers, and it's almost impossible. So I know as a commission, we've talked about it multiple times.
The center is open until noon on Saturdays. I happened to be out there last Saturday, just a little before noon, and the place was literally packed. So yeah, that's a great idea. What Fred said, the economy is what has really killed recycling. As a former printer, recycled paper used to be more economical to produce than from trees, and there's no demand. And it's even worse for corrugated. Packaging, with the economy the way it is, packaging has dropped, so the demand for it has dropped. I have no idea what they were paying then or what they're paying now, but the demand is literally gone.
I really would like to find a way to keep the transfer station open year-round on Saturdays, at least half a day. I empathize for the people that work Monday through Friday. It becomes a staffing issue and a union issue. You have to have X amount of people on there. You have to have somebody to weigh it, somebody to supervise the offloading, stuff like that. If we can find a way around that, I'm all ears. We're the only city in the state, I believe, anymore that takes glass. It's become, it's too expensive to ship or for your return. We have been subsidizing it for a number of years. Now we're just stockpiling it. We're kind of beholden to, our recycler, what they take. We're not decreasing any service as far as recycling goes. Before we took 1 through 6 plastics, now it's 1 through 3. I don't see a reason why we can't keep the recycling center open until 4 or 5 o'clock on Saturdays as well. It's just a matter of a lock and key.
This next one, even though we're a local government, we're going to go globally here. We're going to end with the big one. And this will probably be our last question because we're running out of time. We'll start with Patricia. When applicable, when making decisions regarding Livingston, would you consider climate change and global warming as a factor?
I'm what is known as an old environmentalist. I mean, I was lobbying in the 60s to stop the SST from traveling across the United States with Chris, who's now an adult, and Tim on my one side and Tim on the other. And I was up on Capitol Hill working on that. And I don't know how anyone can ignore global warming. It's remarkable to me. I've spent a lifetime advocating for this, being wise. It takes empathy with the environment. It takes wisdom to govern well and to include the natural world in our governance. And of course, I think it's an important issue. I think it's something that we all have to take into consideration. So when I first got on the city commission, I wanted to reduce our fuel use. And I met with a lot of opposition from the other commissioners. But I think that's a wise thing. I think we need to take a look at our city in terms of its carbon usage. I think we need to be wise.
Well, at times we do have to remember that we all do live on the same planet together, and we're all going to suffer in the same manner together. And to some extent, seeing how we U.S. are responsible for a significant amount of the world's carbon dioxide, maybe every little bit helps. And apparently now it's being left up to the grassroots to think in these terms, and this is as grassrooty as we get. And I have to agree with Patricia that if and when issues come up, we need to think about it. We really do need to think, is there a better way? And as far as alternate industries, climate products, what have you, It's all becoming cheaper on an economy of scale. So actually, we could be saving money by thinking in terms of limiting our carbon footprint. We just need to be aware.
I have to say I agree with both of them in that it's not just about economics. It's not about just the moment, but as a community, we have to think about our future, and not just my individual future, but everyone's. And I believe that we should be thinking ahead. That's why we wouldn't want maybe a big factory in our community for multiple reasons, not just the global warming aspect, but also the pollution in the immediate area. I like that as a city, we have begun discussions on using solar in our water treatment plant, which is logical to me. That why not? It's a big space, it's perfect setting, and you can put big panels in multiple places in the area, and it can pay for itself. So if we're thinking economics as well as our environment, I think that's a good thing. As well as, the obvious one is wind. We have it, we might as well take advantage of it instead of it taking advantage of us, right?
Well, I think it's kind of a no-brainer if there's something that's available as an alternative and it's not harmful in any way, including economically, to the city. My first consideration would be what would be best for the city. I think that we're at a point where there's no real flagrant abuses of the atmosphere or the earth are occurring. They don't burn garbage in here. Just to kind of put things in perspective, what are the fires in California doing right now? And again, if it's an incremental thing and it doesn't harm Livingston economically or inconvenience and seriously inconvenience someone, fine, why not?
From an economic standpoint, we cannot afford to ignore climate change any longer, just by the number of storms we've seen and the fires that we're seeing in California. I've been excited the last couple of years seeing the amount of solar arrays going up on homes in our neighborhoods and stuff around here. The cost is coming down. We need to keep pushing and driving. From our little neck of the woods and pushing our federal government to help help with this, with wind and solar and stuff like that. We cannot afford to ignore this problem any longer. It needs to be addressed.
Mary?
I think that there's already a lot of work going on in this community. I think the library has solar panels that's done through private nonprofits. The Yellowstone Bend Citizens Council, I believe, has been, and Joni Kresich have been working very hard. I don't know how many public buildings are now having solar panels, but I think that in one sense, the role of the city commission can be to enable and support those efforts. The city doesn't have to be directly involved in it in order to further that kind of development. I think that it's very positive. The most we can do in terms of cutting our carbon emissions is best for our community and for everybody around us. So, but I do think there's people working on that, so let's join with them.
I think that's about all the time we have, and I know there are more questions. So maybe we can have the candidates answer your questions one-on-one as you eat the cookies that we have saved for you in the back. And thank you, candidates. And thank you, audience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm really do this every once in a while. I do this. Good job. Thank you very
It is better to, it's not.